Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemons, and this is a breakdown of 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters. And if you're like, Jessica, what does this week have to do with Godzilla King of the Monsters? Well, I'm going to an X-Men event tonight, and this is my Storm Gym look. Do not come for the wig. I'm just cosplaying right now. This is our MonsterVerse Rewatch series, and every week we're gonna go Godzilla! That's not the title, but I'm still trying. Into Hollow Earth, though, for our MonsterVerse Rewatch series and breaking down each of the MonsterVerse films, plus Monarch Legacy of Monsters. We've talked about the origins of Kong and Godzilla, even the origins of Monarch, but in today's video, we're gonna go over all the monsters that are hidden on Earth in Godzilla King of the Monsters. But first, be sure to check out our nerdride.shop for the latest and greatest in New Rockstars merch. You can grab a piece of merch inspired by X-Men 97 series and rock that back to school look for the Xavier Institute. I'm wearing one right now because this is my gym outfit. I'm going to gym, I'm young Storm, I'm gonna go work out. I don't need to though because my body's banging. Please don't come for me. Picking something up from the nerdride.shop is a great way to support the channel and show off your favorite fandom. And we all know a lot of your favorite fandoms is X-Men, so get this shirt. It's amazing. I'm wearing the crop top one. So we open with the Warner Brothers and Legendary logo, but for this movie, the director, Mike Dougherty, huge fan of Godzilla, by the way, decided to design these studio logos to look like old engraved hieroglyphs, which I love because we want to establish dealing with something more ancient and mythic. I just love that approach already. Skull Island definitely ventured into the unknown, but in this movie, we focus on the in-depth research Monarch has uncovered, just like how many Titans there are and how deep that Titans lore can go. If you look closely at the carvings to the right of the Warner Brothers logo, it looks like the representation of Ghidorah, and to the left, this might be the Griffin who was supposed to appear in the scrapped 1994 film. On the Legendary logo on the left, I think this could be the Titanus Quetzalcoatl, which is featured later in the movie at Outpost 57 in Machu Picchu, Peru. This one on the left is the mammoth-like Titan that we see later, Behemoth. During the intro, they're stomping of something approaching, and it shakes the screen, and this build-ups to Godzilla's roar, which according to Mike was a modern interpretation of the opening to the 54 film. We open the movie differently than the last two. This one doesn't open with the montage, but simply with the studio logos, then the movie, which feels weird, but once you realize technically this was a Godzilla 2 movie and Skull Island represents Kong 1, it's clear they just wanted to try something new. The movie begins with the flares from the iconic Halo jump sequence from the 2014 Godzilla, a scene we'll never forget, or maybe just me. Dougherty added this in late, but wanted to connect it to that 2014 film's chapter, so this Russell family was the heart of the Mutu and Godzilla battle, which I think is a great touch because Monarch follows that woman who was on the bridge during the San Francisco battle, and this family was affected by the 2014 final showdown, and I hate most humans in kaiju movies, but I love exploring how the single event can affect everyone. We're in 2014's flashback, but the only reused footage from the original 2014 movie, according to the King of Monsters art book, comes from the Senate hearing that we see later in the movie. We focus on Dr. Mark Russell, played by Kyle Chandler, if you remember him from the 2005 King Kong movie, Dr. Emma Russell, played by Vera Farmiga, and baby Madison Russell, played by Lixie Rabe, who played Tony Stark's daughter, and surprisingly, this won't be the only Tony Stark-esque cameo in this movie. They're screaming and searching for their son Andrew, who was lost, presumably killed during the 2014 showdown. This begins the reclusive, burying yourself in your studies, avenging story arc we see between Mark and Emma throughout the movie. We cut to Emma in a dark, cold blue room reminiscing the horrible memory, and she looks back at the portrait of her family. Baby Madison wears a Boston hat, later a Boston shirt, and we end the movie in Boston, and it's not really explored, but Emma took a job in San Francisco and moved the family out of Boston. Then after the events of 2014 Godzilla, they moved back to Boston to try to be a family again. So that's why Boston is so important all around in this movie. So currently the news is out. Monsters are real and Monarch is at the center of it all. This takes place 5 years after the Godzilla and Muto business, and people are still mourning the folks that they lost. During this protest in DC, we see a lot of the posters that say destroy all monsters, and this could be a reference to the 68 film where all the monsters let loose on the world. Also, they used real protest footage, they just digitally changed their signs. Dougherty encouraged us to debate on who or what they're protesting, and I'm pretty sure 100% that it's Donald Trump. A piece of me thinks this is the Keep Families Together march in 2018. It's hard to pinpoint though. The government is pushing for the extermination of the Titans while Monarch is trying to protect and learn from them. Monarch, unlike the last two movies, played a much heavier role in this film. Remember that this came out before the Monarch TV show, so this played as like the pseudo origin story for us for Monarch. Another big, honestly main part of this film is what's inside that Black Monarch case, which I'll get into a little bit later. I'm mainly pointing it out now because I like that in Skull Island they open with protest footage too, and Houston Brooks stepping out with that 70s Monarch briefcase. Here we have a modern day protest footage and have a super covert, indestructible Monarch case. Though similar imagery, like most of this movie and the franchise, we'll see how time plays into Monarch through politics, resources, and advanced technology, which is important to flag because she's also reading Carl Sagan's Dragons of Eden book, which discusses how human intelligence evolved and what contributed to its development. This is basically summarized in the book through rapid advancements in technology, science, and just human collectiveness and how we pose more threats and issues to ourselves that need to be solved as a collective in order to to grow. Weirdly, Emma's trying to put that narrative into her own hands and solve the rapid threats that we've already created. And it's just like a little up Easter egg. We're introduced to human number 3, Millie Bobby Brown, aka Madison Russell. She's listening to Wave of Mutilation by the Pixies, which also foreshadows how there will absolutely be a lot of mutilation in this movie, done by the biggest wave maker of all, Godzilla. On her computer, she's scrolling through her emails, one covering the ruins of San Francisco and Vegas from the 2014 movie, one from her dad Mark, one covering dolphins that comes straight from this 2018 NPR article on dolphins using targeted echolocation to plan hunts, the extinction of bees, more messages from her dad, another real article from 2018 studying the origins of life, and a real National Geographic article from 2015 on humans surviving another extinction. You get the gist of it all. This movie tackles climate change and animal conservation. The biggest little Easter egg here, though, is in the email that she already currently has opened. It covers the reintroduction of wolves in natures to hunt overpopulation. So Emma's overall mission is to wipe out most of the humans and let the Titans bring back nature as it should. Basically like a hard reset. And this was all inspired by the 1995 reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone. Though it's all like controversial, the elk population had exploded, and the wolves brought from Canada essentially over time brought those numbers down and protected the valleys from the elks overgrazing. So we're already exploring so much foreshadowing and themes in the first 3 minutes of this movie. It's later revealed that we're at Monarch Outpost 61 at the Yunnan Rainforest in China, aka the Temple of Moth, aka Mothra's outpost for now. We eventually see a scientist observing the old Mothra carvings on the wall. Clearly, this cavern is older than history itself. It's clear how the director wanted the approach of these creatures' mythology and lore to come from being regarded as gods, so their homes and temples will usually have inscriptions and art reflective of the culture at the time. This is a long-standing tradition of Mothra also being worshipped, so it's nothing new to our queen. So Mothra is literally a hatchie. They refer to her as Titanus Monsura, which is her name overseas, but I'll call her Mothra for now. She begins freaking out, threatened by all the weapons, and starts shooting her little webs. This is her silk attack, and we know that the larva could do these in the older movies as well. Interesting fact here, Toho was adamant that Mothra couldn't kill anyone. So when she's attacking these soldiers, you see them get sprayed with webs or tossed into more webs, but they're not really dying. When she tosses the soldier into the web though, you can see a giant spider, which we're just walking about in this place with a giant spider over there. How are people even existing? Dougherty acknowledged this and left it to our imagination, and everyone shouted Kumonga from the 67 Son of Godzilla, that giant spider that I hate. An idea I wish that they would have kept in the script and explored was initially they mentioned that this egg was over 10,000 years old, so the cult of Mothra would have died off by then. So when the larva awakens all these people, she's confused because she was expecting to wake up to the twin priestesses from the Toho movies instead, and I think that's really sweet. Emma ends up using the machine that she built with her husband Mark, which we saw earlier. This is the Orca, named after James Quint's boat in Jaws. If we learned anything from the MonsterVerse movies, Jaws and Jurassic Park are always big inspiration for these directors. Like an orca whale, it sends frequencies out, sort of like echolocation, yet this sonic frequency, depending on the isolated bioacoustic of the creature we're using, will soothe, overpower, or threaten the Titan taking it in. Luckily, the alpha frequency works, which we later learned was Godzilla's. Then an explosion happens, and here comes Alan Jonah, played by Charles Dance, who, yes, is our villain, but this movie definitely wants you to argue in what way? And I say in an eco-terrorist kind of way. But I get what you guys were trying to argue. Is he a bad person? Yes, but in what way? We jump to footage of Godzilla fighting the Muto from the 2014 Godzilla movie. We even get a brief glimpse of Kong from Skull Island, and we're at a Senate hearing in Washington, D.C. And what we have here is the return of Thomas Middleditch, but as a new character, Sam Coleman, head of technology at Monarch. Sam refers to them as Titans, and so does the news lady at the beginning. In the 2014, we called Godzilla everything but a Titan. We called the Mutos under the acronym Massive Unidentified Terrestrial Organism. Back in the day, they referred to them as kaijus. So why the change made here? Well, Dougherty, the director, went on to explain it a little later down the line. He said, 1, Muto stands for Massive Unidentified Terrestrial Organism, so once a creature is identified and classified, it's technically no longer a Muto, so Monarch had to come up with a new term, Titan. 2, besides sounding cool, the definition of a Titan matches the history of the creatures as the first gods and ties it back to their ancient mythic roots. And 3, Kaiju was already taken by Pacific Rim at the time, but I like the idea that the English translation of Kaiju could be Titan, because then everybody would win. Monarch's council has Dr. Serizawa and Dr. Vivian Graham from the 2014 Godzilla. On the opposite side is Admiral William Stentz from that movie as well. Our senator is CCH Pounder, who I love. I love this woman. I wish she had a bigger role in this movie, but whatever, I love her. In my world or in another world, she's my Waller. She says this:
Monarch was tasked with finding and destroying these radioactive monsters. But you either can't or won't tell us how many there are or why they're showing up.
So we see the beef the government currently has with Monarch, which was a growing concern in the Monarch TV show, because every time they told their superior officers about the creatures, they tried killing the Titans, so the tradition is clearly still upheld here. Before we segue, Clemons shows the Titan reproduction video where the genitals are blurred out, and they show the Muto sharing the bomb from the first movie, so I guess their mouths are actually their genitals? It might have just been a little joke, but I was like, this is so funny. We're taken to Mark's home, and this cabin should look familiar to you, and I love this bit. This is Tony's cabin from Endgame, so not only do we have his daughter, but we also have his house. They tell Mark that Emma and Madison were taken, and they don't know the team of individuals that took them, but they're after the Orca. Emma used bioacoustics of different Titans to create the Orca's baseline frequency, which is revealed later as Godzilla and humans' voices, because we are the #1 threats, baby. She was able to capture so many creatures: Titanus Mothra, aka Mothra, Titanus Rodan, Titanus Gojira, aka Godzilla, Methuselah, Scylla, or Scylla, however you want to pronounce it, Behemoth, and Titanus Kong, aka Kong. These frequencies also played a major role in the first Godzilla movie, because Bryan Cranston's character discovered the Mutos were talking to each other using sounds, and from that they figured the Mutos were trying to mate. It's also revealed Monarch has 17 and counting after Godzilla. They're aware most are in deep hibernation. Then we see the top secret Monarch sites around the globe that feature a lot of the remaining Titans that double as our real-world mythology and tales that I'll also describe. We have Leviathan, the biblical sea monster in Scotland, Outpost 49, Methuselah, which has a couple of different depictions in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, though this one's in Germany, Outpost 67, Baphomet, we all know who Baphomet is, in Morocco, Outpost 68, Amulok, the water monster from Kalapuya tribe in Oregon, which is in Russia, Outpost 67. Japan has Yamato Norochi, the Japanese 8-headed and 8-tailed dragon or serpent at Outpost 91, Typhon of Greek mythology, one of the younger Titans at Outpost 92 in Cambodia. Outpost 99, Australia has the Bunyip from Aboriginal folklore. We even see the Abaddon, the Destroyer, or the Angel of the Abyss, Scylla or Scylla, however you guys want to pronounce it. I say Scylla. The sea monster from Greek mythology, Tiamat from ancient Mesopotamia mythology, Rodan, Godzilla, King Kong, the Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, Behemoth from a lot of Jewish legends. They're literally everywhere, and I love how much our lore can and does drive the MonsterVerse. And also, as a note, Behemoth is the only new creature. Dougherty wanted to make a creature that wasn't an insectoid or a reptile or a hybrid of the two, so they just created a giant mammoth with some additional features. A lot of these places are also considered sacred to one culture or another, such as Mount Fuji, Ayers Rock, Jebel Barkel, Angkor Wat. I think Dougherty is flagging these Titans are the basis for worship at all these locations. We arrive at Castle Bravo, Monarch Outpost 54 in Bermuda. This is the new flagship facility to track and monitor Godzilla on his own turf. The observation base is strategically designed as an oil rig to not garner attention so they don't get attacked like Mothra's outpost was earlier. When they're descending into the base, you can see the female Muto, and I think this is the male Muto on the left from the 2014 Godzilla film. We're then taken to Antarctica, Monarch Outpost 32, an homage to John Carpenter's The Thing, which took place at Outpost 31. Dougherty is a huge horror fan as well. We see Ghidorah beyond the ice wall, and though we never learn why Ghidorah is behind that wall, Dougherty said he likes to think that he lost his battle with Godzilla and gets KO'd into freezing waters. Also, he wanted each Titan's hibernation location to represent their personality and history, which is why the cold and harsh, desolate landscape of Antarctica made sense for the three-headed monster. It's also the continent we know least about, so what lies underneath those ice sheets? Is it a three-headed serpent? Possibly. We refer to Ghidorah as Monster Zero. The name is a reference to the invasion of the Astro Monster, which was Godzilla movie featuring Godzilla, Rodan, and Ghidorah. Ghidorah was called Monster Zero in that movie, and the American release was also titled Monster Zero. Emma presses her hand against the ice wall, and it feels like that scene in the Godzilla X Kong trailer where Gia's feeling the wall and that scientist is pressing up against Godzilla's hibernation sac, which I don't know, it just irritates me. I get Gia doing it because she senses the Titans, but everyone else, just stop touching things. Back at Castle Bravo, Godzilla is taking out the observation drones and rising from the bottom of the ocean. Once they start panicking, they prepare the Maser turret. This is a nod to the Maser cannon, the weapon in the old Godzilla movies. Serizawa opens the shields to show that they're not threatening. Then we see our big swimming man boy. His little beams from his spikes light up the room, and it's an intimidating display. This is also the first time we've seen Godzilla use bioluminescence as a form of communication, and it's perfect timing to just, talk to humans with. Graham compares it like a gorilla pounding its chest, which yes, is a King Kong reference, but also during this scene, Dougherty played the sound of a heartbeat on set for the actors, and it was the sound of Kong's dying heart from the 76 film. Mark looks directly into the eyes of Godzilla, and we see his reflection as well. Like the other movies, they use motion capture. They capture the eyes of the creatures and their really soulful parts, and this is TJ Storm who did it for Godzilla. Then Godzilla shoots past the outpost and speeds in the opposite direction, and Godzilla in this movie is 393 feet tall, which is massive, but only a little over 30 feet bigger than he was in the first movie. We're on the USS Argo, Monarch command ship, which is a nod to the ship from Jason the Argonauts, the original mythic vessel. Stan tells us Godzilla dropped off a scan near Venezuela. He says this.
I'm telling you, Dr. Brooks was right. It's the hollow earth. That's how he moves around so fast, using these underwater tunnels like wormholes.
He's referring to Houston Brooks from Skull Island, who was adamant about the Hollow Earth after going to Skull Island. It's then revealed in this shot that Emma is working with Alan Jonah, or at least to the audience. Then Emma detonates the bomb, freeing Ghidorah from his ice prison. This scene feels just like the Muto destroying the outpost in the 2014 Godzilla movie, everyone just trying to escape and scaffolds just falling all over the place. Then the gates of hell literally open. And then Emma wakes up Ghidorah with the orca, and we hear Ghidorah's little growls as they awaken. The spiked tail pops up, then the first head followed by the second and the third. Now, later we'll see Ghidorah and Godzilla in the old-fashioned standoff scene. Ghidorah is literally massive, huge, standing at 521 feet tall, much bigger than Godzilla, and that's not including his wingspan. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Mental health can be a hard thing to wrap your mind around. Everybody has off days, but when those days start becoming more frequent or taking more of a toll, it's time to find a therapist, which is exactly what BetterHelp can help you do. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier and less intimidating for a lot of people. First, you go to their site and you can use our link, betterhelp.com/newrockstars. You answer a few questions and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or computer via phone call, video chat, or messaging, however you feel most comfortable. It's the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/newrockstars or choose New Rockstars during sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Ghidorah belts and the yellow lightning illuminate behind them, and Ghidorah has an electroreceptor molecular biology and can basically conduct electricity on its own, let alone it's also a flying tropical storm wherever it goes. Ghidorah is later revealed as otherworldly, basically a space monster, so it's messing up our natural cycle with the Titans like an extremely invasive species. They start doing this like Three Stooges. Like Godzilla, their motion capture was done by 3 actors separately so they could capture each of their personalities. Some interesting info on the heads here. The middle one is in charge, and the left head is easily distracted and somewhat docile. The heads are officially named Ichi, Ni, and San, respectively, meaning 1, 2, and 3 in Japanese, though the internet loves calling San Kevin because he's a little dumb idiot. Look at him. Madison uses the orca to lure Ghidorah to them, and it begins to set up its gravity beam, similar to Godzilla's atomic blast. It's really interrupted, and the middle head of the Ghidorah bites Kevin's head, and Kevin goes like, "What?" And I just love this little Three Stooges action they have going on. Godzilla rises out of the ground, illuminating his blue spikes. Ghidorah's first appearance in 1964's Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. He wasted no time fighting Godzilla, so they wanted to do that again in this movie. Ghidorah rattles their tail like a rattlesnake, and I like the intimidation display both these little babies are putting on. We get this wide shot, which is replicated from the 1991's Godzilla vs. Ghidorah final battle. The size difference just feels unfair here. Like in the 2014 film, they studied real animals to understand how monsters would fight. Godzilla, they used bears mostly. Ghidorah used bears as well, but also a Komodo dragon. That's why the one head is always stalking when the other ones are attacking. We get this sick ass shot of Godzilla rising up in the fight in front of that full moon, and I can't get enough of it. It reminds me of Skull Island when he's in the sunlight. God, I eat these scenes up. Godzilla misses their atomic blast and gets shot by Ghidorah's, which, you know, instant knock, it feels like. He gets blown into the hole Ghidorah came out of, which reminded me of the compilation of like how many times Godzilla historically has fallen into a hole during battle, and it's a lot of times. Then weirdly, Graham is eaten by Ghidorah, and I know Dougherty wanted to kill someone that meant a lot to the series, but like, Graham, she didn't really mean a lot to me. She was just really nice. It just feels like a weird choice of kill. Kill Maddie or something. Godzilla gets back up and Ghidorah flies into the sky. And Mark watches like Brody seeing the male Muto fly away in the first film. Emma calls Serizawa, and in their call, she confirms she's working with the bad guys and that she's trying to save the world. Since humans have been a dominant species, she credits us for overpopulation, pollution, and war. And you know, she's not wrong, but she calls us the infection that the Titans are supposed to fix. As I mentioned earlier with the wolf's reintroduction to combat overpopulated elk, the Titans are the wolves and we are essentially the elk. I also wanted to be known that during Emma's little speech here about how horrible she is, she has included a PowerPoint featuring Titans destroying big cities, the Muto in Vegas, and the Bikini Atoll, Godzilla, and Kong Skull Island. It just feels weird that she would put all these little snippets in while she's telling us how bad she is. But she does mention San Francisco, Vegas, and wherever the Titans go, life follows triggered by that radiation. This is great to know, but also like 1 million people will die, so it's not actually great. And I assume since they take in radiation, maybe like trees, they exude something else that triggers nature to speed up the process. She also says over the last 6 years, Monarch has created bunkers to save and restart civilization. So after Skull Island, they started creating bunkers in case something happened, which was smart for them. So they knew ultimately there would be a lot of casualties, but the Titans are cool, and it just feels like they were expecting us to die. At Isla de Mara, Mexico, Monarch Outpost 56, Rodan is situated deep in that volcano. Rodan's first appearance was in 1956, and this is a little homage to that. The Titan explodes from the top of the container, making it look like a volcano's erupting. This volcano is based on a real one in Guatemala. It erupted in 2018, and they based the design on what it looked like. A giant talon breaches, destroying everything in sight. Like the Muto leaving the facility, ripping those little wires down, through the lava prevails Rodan, and this might be the sickest scene I've ever seen in a movie. This is the Hellspawn breaching lava, and what's more metal than this? Chen says local legends call this monster Rodan the fire demon, and of course they do. Look at him. And the music during this feels like an old school kaiju movie as well. Originally, we were going to see inside Outpost 56, and it was the temple to the fire demon with designs on Mayan culture, but I feel like the emerging from the lava is much more cooler. Everyone watches in silent horror as Rodan arrives, just like they did Godzilla in the 2014 movie when he approached Hawaii. They did this wild crash zoom effect into the monster, dramatic and exciting. It makes us feel like we're in it. Also, they based Rodan's features on that of a turkey vulture because they're hella creepy and very crazy looking. And looking like a real bat out of hell, Rodan soars over the city, gusts of wind destroying the homes below. This is Rodan's shockwave. He's done this since the 56 film, and I love seeing how we interpret it now in the future. Like, it's much more scary, you know, much less funny. 4 fighter pilots zoom away, and I guess they were played by Eli Roth, Claire Grant, Seth Green, and Stephen Moyer. They already said this in Twitter, but they're not credited on IMDb or in the end. Rodan fighting fighter jets also isn't new for the movie. He's done this before. Rodan eats the soldier who is ejected from his seat, and these Titans are really just swallowing people up. They fly into the tropical storm, almost snatched by Rodan when he runs into Ghidorah. Like how they used bears and Komodo dragons to get the concept of Godzilla and Ghidorah fighting, they used eagles for Rodan, which is why he's always using his talons. Admiral Stenz calls and tells them to stand down, that they've created a new weapon, and it's called the Oxygen Destroyer, which destroys all life forms within a 2-mile radius. Dougherty tweeted an image of the Oxygen Destroyer before the movie came out, so everyone knew it would play some sort of part in this film. The Oxygen Destroyer killed Godzilla in the 54 film as well, so we knew what hell would break loose once the humans created another stupid weapon like this. Right when Ghidorah is about to attack them, Godzilla jumps out of the water and brings them down. Godzilla rips one of the heads off, then the Oxygen Destroyer makes contact. The mushroom cloud is green, which is a nice touch. It could be the combustion between the two bioenergies because Ghidorah is yellow and Godzilla is blue. Pieces of the creature's flesh are in the water. Ghidorah rises from the sea and flies away as Godzilla pulse fades from our radar. He's donezo, or so we think. Ghidorah regrows their missing head atop the volcano, and yes, it's Kevin's head, of course. And he's used to losing his head all the time because he's a little dummy. We get this incredible shot of Ghidorah bellowing atop the volcano and a giant cross in the foreground signifying who our new god is. This is a pretty frickin' metal display. I mean, just put it on a goddamn t-shirt. Ghidorah beckons Titans from all over to awake from their hibernation when we see their emergence. Emma and Jonah realize Ghidorah is waking them and it's not the orca machine. Jonah says, "Long live the king," which, yes, I will only imagine the Lion King and only that the next time we hear it again in this movie. We meet an older Dr. Brooks from Skull Island, who leads the Monarch camp at Mothra's Little Waterfall hideaway. There he is working with Dr. Ling, Dr. Chen's twin sister. Later it's revealed that within the family, she and her sister are 3rd generation Monarch operatives after her mother and her grandmother. She shows a picture of her mother or maybe grandmother later, and Monarch Files coded this image to 1961 archives of Infant Island. 61 was also the year Mothra's movie came out, and the twins are Easter eggs to Mothra's priestesses. Also, Infant Island is where the priestesses are from. Mothra hatches again and expands her wings, and she's glorious. The wingspan is 803 feet on this beauty, but unfortunately Rodan's is 871, which is why he kind of overpowers her. Stenz and the rest of the army arrive at Castle Bravo, and they go over the footage of the current Titans messing up the world. We see them destroying Brazil, where we will be again in Godzilla X Kong, and those poor people. He says he tried to lure them with nuclear materials, but they are not taking the bait this time. We did this with Bikini Atoll in the first movie, luring them with nuclear weapons as well, and it just never works. Emma recognizes that Ghidorah is trying to destroy the planet rather than fix it, which, yeah, duh, you idiot. So if you notice in Maddie's little bunker room, everything is so vintage. The bunkers were made 60 years ago and not touched since, so everything looks ancient in this room. In the back, the Monarch outpost bunkers are highlighted on the map, so you can see they're just about everywhere. We see Detroit and Philly when you get a better zoom in. Emma deduces they should broadcast the Orca from Fenway Stadium. It's a few miles away from their bunker, so we now know that they're in Boston. Then from Castle Bravo, we get this beautiful angelic light from the clouds, like God blessing us. Lots of religious imagery here in this movie. And here comes our goddess, and it's Mothra. She's cooing, and it's so sweet. She has dust falling from her, which happens in the classic movie as well, but in this movie, she moves the clouds with her around the dust, hence why she's emerging from the clouds like God. Chen calls her Mothra, queen of the monsters, which hell yeah, baby, she's always been. They bring up Godzilla's Godzilla's frequency of speaking with her, and it's not really explored, but we know they have a symbiotic relationship between the two different species, and that's his queen. Serizawa strokes his father's pocket watch, later debating the situation. When asked what time is it, he says,
"Time to get the new watch."
This pocket watch is explained in the first movie, but it belonged to his father and stopped on August 6, 8:15 a.m. in 1945, the day of the atomic bomb landed over Hiroshima. According to Godzilla Awakening comics, his father survived Hiroshima and found Ishiro in the aftermath. That watch is a reminder of how human interference and humanity and reckless retaliation can just lead to major destruction and countless lives lost.
Sometimes, the only way to heal our wounds is to make peace with the demons who created them. Nature always has a wheel balancing itself. The only question is, what part will we play?
And they give this man the best lines of every movie, and it's so great because it encompasses the entire theme and message of the movies overall. Maddie is grabbing her emergency supply sneakily. She steals the Orca, which was too easy to take. We see the USS Brody entering Washington, D.C. This is a nod to Ford Brody from the 2014 Godzilla movie. D.C. is also completely flooded. The rest of the humans are in the submarine that went through a vortex to the tunnel into Hollow Earth. We see an underwater sunken city older than Egyptian and Roman, hieroglyphs of Godzilla, them praising him and him being their first god. Later, when they blow up Godzilla's undersea lair, outside the building you can see this Titan, who appeared in 1955's Godzilla Raids Again. Also, this is the first monster to be shown fighting Godzilla in a movie. Stanton says this,
"If only the earth and stones could speak the stories they could tell us."
Which is a nod to Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, or GMK for short. Maddie has now fully escaped and is at Fenway Park, where they're currently evacuating people. This movie shows every single advertisement in Fenway Park, which is insane to me, because how did they get every single sponsor to agree to this? But they did, and they said it was the hardest thing they ever did in their life. Godzilla is feeding and regenerating here off the radiation. It's his home where he evolves, like in Godzilla x Kong. I don't think we ever see Godzilla's home yet until now. He normally just swims away and disappears, so instead of imagining him constantly swimming, we see him sort of hibernate. Serizawa is about to sacrifice himself to revive Godzilla, or more so, wake him up. And everyone says goodbye to Serizawa, but he gives his notes to Mark, which I think we should never forget. Serizawa places a nuclear bomb and starts the countdown. He looks at his father's pocket watch, and this pocket watch has now lived through like 2 nuclear bombs. Godzilla opens his eyes to Serizawa, who places one light hand on him. He says goodbye, old friend. Serizawa's sacrifice was meant to be an inverse of Serizawa's death from the 54 film, which he sacrificed himself to kill Godzilla. Here, he's sacrificing himself to save Godzilla. I never realized how we literally just like blew up Homeboy's spot. However, the scene was really sad and made me forget about Graham being eaten earlier. The nuclear blast shoots the submarine back to the top of the ocean, and in those moments before that, we hear the billowing sort of hymn, like a prayer from a choir, which was translated into ancient Babylonian, meant to be like a prayer to the first gods by Barrick, the composer for this movie. Godzilla begins breaching, making a whirlpool of his light. He rises from the ocean, illuminating the atomic blast from his mouth and moving it to the sky. We get this crash zoom effect again, and I can't stand it, but I also love it because he comes out of the ocean like, I'm awake. Who woke me up? Then when planning the retrieval of the Orca, Stanton says this.
What about Mo, Larry, and Curly over here?
Which he's referring to Ghidorah as the Three Stooges, which I keep doing throughout this breakdown. Chen says Godzilla will bring balance, which feels like the exact quote Serizawa always repeated. The keywords are the theme for the first movie overall. Then Stanton says this.
Well, Serizawa, let him fight action. I used to love it when he said that.
A nod to 2014's Godzilla, where he said the iconic line. Mark says, no, this time we joined the fight. And I mean, I wish y'all hadn't. I wish y'all would have just sat put and didn't move into it. Ghidorah, when they arrive at Fenway Park, steps onto the green monster. If you frequent Fenway Park, there's like a 40-foot green wall in left field that's a great target for right-handed hitters, I guess, and they knew they wanted to mess it up in the movie, so Ghidorah stomps on it because Godzilla, respectfully, is the big green monster. A blue atomic blast hits Ghidorah. Clearly Godzilla is coming. The song is the classic Godzilla theme, but altered. McCreary arranged a new version of the classic Godzilla song for this scene. Godzilla runs at Ghidorah, which feels a lot less funnier than he does in the Godzilla x Kong trailer. Maybe it's the building slowing him down. To pull off this shot though, the VFX team had to make Godzilla run at 200 miles per hour allegedly. So that big ass lizard is running 200 miles per hour. It's gotta be all strides. It's just gotta be because he's so big. The impact they make colliding immediately blasts a little pulse all over, and it's the best part. I love this fight. Also, he's bigger here because we juiced him up with too much radiation from the nuclear bomb. And I think we see this happen in the Godzilla x Kong trailer when he's too full of nuclear radiation. It's like pressure building up, and he sort of force releases it. Ghidorah lifts and slams Godzilla into the ground, but Godzilla hits him with the atomic blast. Then my sweet angel Mothra arrives. Originally, they were gonna have Rodan Rodan team up with Mothra and Godzilla, but it just wouldn't be a fair fight. Maddie ran back home, which sure, go ahead, it won't stop what's happening outside your front door. Back to the amazing kaiju fight though, Ghidorah takes in an electrical grid and immediately imbues himself with the strength of 1,000 lightning bolts, and this is what I want to see. I love this scene. Mothra stabs Rodan with her stinger, and this is a new concept because our girl doesn't have a stinger in the Toho films. This is made for the movie. Like for Andrew, Emma and Mark start searching for Madison, yelling her name, and they find her in the fetal position in a tub under debris, and who cares? I want to see more Titan fights. Godzilla and Ghidorah are going at it. Ghidorah lifts Godzilla into the heavens, and I know I mentioned that Halo jump scene in 2014's Godzilla a lot, but this is the same vibe. He's falling from the heavens. After the devastating impact, Mothra calls on top of him, ready to fight Ghidorah, her king, our queen. When she stretches her wings, you get a better look at them, especially their bioluminescence. Her eyes on her wings are the same color and shape as Godzilla's, and VFX did this on purpose. And my baby girl, the queen of the monsters and my heart, sacrificed herself to protect Godzilla, and her little essence seeps into his cracks. Emma sets up the orca and Ghidorah starts sprinting. She runs with the orca and decides not to get on the ship, sacrificing herself to save Godzilla and to save the world. She gets into the Jeep and speeds away, echoing the orca with her. Ghidorah follows and blasts the car upside down. Emma's still alive, and she says this line:
"Long live the king."
Get yours, Emma. I'm proud of her, but also I didn't forget that she put us into all of this mess. Then we get Burning Godzilla. In Godzilla vs. Destroya, we unveiled Burning Godzilla, though that story is way, way sadder. That Godzilla dies at the end by exploding. This Burning Godzilla still kind of explodes. You know, he's just like maybe protected by Mothra's essence, though he literally melts the buildings around him, which is sick as hell. When Godzilla blasts Ghidorah, you can see Mothra's outline and hear her call, and I love that because I love my queen. Godzilla steps on Ghidorah, forcing a giant electrical explosion to blast through the city, and then there's silence. Then the rumble under this statue starts moving. It's Godzilla burning the rest of Ghidorah's head with his atomic blast, just like he did the female Muto, another severed head with an atomic blast. And it took them long enough, but the other Titans arrived, even a Muto. Rodan bows, and so do the fellow Titans, and Godzilla then roars atop the rubble, and then we get the title Godzilla King of the Monsters. The credits leave us with a ton of information. How the last movies began with a montage, this movie ends with them. This also marks the first time Blue Oyster Cult's 1977 single Godzilla is being used in a Godzilla film. We see Daniel's vision of the four beasts, a story from the Bible. Daniel had visions from God of four beasts, which symbolize four great civilizations, and how every empire will eventually lose power and fade away. Titans returning to their natural environments headline. It seems after Ghidorah was defeated, the Titans retreated to their homes. Monarch releases Titan studies to the public. After the events of 2014 Godzilla and 17 Titans rising from the ground, they needed to release some information to the public. I mean, come on, everyone's dying. Mysterious rainforest blossoms in the Sahara Desert. Strange new life appears after Titan activity. The article below mentions 14 species that have been taken off the endangered species list, as the Titans have caused a boom in all animal populations. So maybe Emma was right. Maybe. The redacted words say others scavenge fallen Titans for food, building structures from bones and hides. The immense resources. Rodan's skeleton is imposed on this dragon, so it's drawing a connection from historical stories about dragons to Rodan. The redacted words say, called some of the creatures gods, the old ones, or dragons. Battle between Marduk and Zeus. Zeus' description as a storm bird lines up with both Rodan and Ghidorah's. Godzilla's path through Pacific, bringing life back to reefs, restoring fish populations. The article also details how deforested areas are regrowing at a record pace. There's a lot of Japanese art that looks similar to this one. This could be referencing Manda, a sea dragon kaiju who has made appearances in old Godzilla movies before. Behemoth Titan restores deforested regions of Amazon. Creature's radiation has rapid growth effects on local fauna. In a seemingly miraculous event that has stumped scientists, the 20% of Amazon rainforest that is deforested has been restored to near pristine conditions by mastodon-like creature Behemoth. So they are restoring nature. Ancient rivalries between Titans suspected. Will humans be caught between prehistoric grudge matches? This is definitely hinting at Godzilla vs. Kong. This is a funny one. Back in 1845, Dr. Albert Koch made the skeleton using bones of two large snake creatures he found and put it on display in New York. It was later discovered not to be one creature, but two. He did something similar prior to this with a mammoth skeleton he discovered. He added bones to make it look larger than it really was. Bat using echolocations. This ties into Orca. This image is from Bestiary, a poet from the 12 to 1300s. Pierre Denis de Montfort's Pulpe Colossal. Pierre was a naturalist obsessed with giant squids. There was a giant octopus kaiju in the 1962 King Kong vs. Godzilla, and this this could be referencing that. Cornelius Meyer's dragon, a hoax from the 1690s. Monarch finds massive egg. Could giant insect egg be another Mothra or something else? Monarch to explore Hollow Earth. Monster hunters seek origins of titans beneath Skull Island. We see this in the follow-up movie. Also, the Monarch TV show tells us how they're already sent explorations into Hollow Earth, so maybe they haven't disclosed everything to the public. Then there's a post-credit scene where we're back at Isla de Mara, and a man takes Jonah to see the head of Ghidorah still left behind. And that is it for the revisit, rewatch, re-breakdown for Mike Dougherty's 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters. This movie included the most monsters, the most humans, the biggest fights, and the most casualties so far in the MonsterVerse. Also, they included my baby girl Mothra, so it's big to me. Huge major thanks to my best friend in the universe, Noah Chen, for helping me write this breakdown. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Lulu_Clemons. Subscribe to all of our channels in the new Rockstars network for all that deep analysis that you little monsters can't get enough of. And remember, sometimes the only way to heal our wounds is to make peace with the demons that created them.